So why are electric car sales apparently under pressure?
But electric vehicle owners are facing a whole new set of challenges as temperatures dip.
But in this race to seize the moment, many contenders are sputtering. Several high-profile companies have failed, gone bankrupt, or fought struggle after struggle.
Electric cars are made up of colossal pollution and human misery. From indirectly triggering cumbersome carbon emissions, disorientation of biodiversity, depletion of resources, infecting groundwater, air pollution, exploiting laborers, massacre of child miners, EV automobiles are one of the most flagitious and humbug industry mankind has ever come across. Manipulation uses silence as a tool to hurt you deeply. I have read it somewhere. By the way, have you ever seen an EV making noise? The noiselessness of EVs in reality hurts the planet much more than gasoline vehicles ever could. The prime propagation of EV makers who market their products as a better, cleaner and energy-efficient alternative to traditional gasoline-powered vehicles has always been their pretentious concern for the ongoing challenges like global warming, environment crisis, scarcity of crude oil and coal. They have spent billions on a fine-grained veneer to disguise their reality and the nasty secret of their blood batteries from the world. Let's overlook everything else. Like most of the EV charging stations are powered by diesel generators, and how the lifespan of an EV is not even half of a traditional gasoline vehicle, which leads to great amounts of automobile wastage. For once, let us not consider these points and shift our focus to the very basic and initial comparison of how much energy is needed to manufacture a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle and a no-pollution EV. During the manufacturing phase, an EV results in 60% more carbon emission than a regular ICE vehicle. Proven studies have shown that the carbon footprint of a traditional vehicle is only around 17% of its entire lifespan during manufacturing, whereas the numbers rise above 52% in case of EVs. Hence, EVs are born from much more pollution than they actually claim. The most important part of an EV is its battery. An average EV battery contains around 8 kilograms of lithium, 14 kilograms of cobalt, and 20 kilograms of manganese. And this is the lowest possible composition for just one EV, that too with a lifespan of just 6 to 8 years. The greater nefariousness is the negligible recycling options or reusability of those expired batteries. Less than 1% of the entire battery waste is recycled, and not even 5% of it is reused, and this leads to more waste dumping landfills that pollutes the land and promotes the depletion of soil. The minerals required to manufacture an EV battery are usually lithium, cobalt and manganese, and to extract these minerals from the belly of the planet Earth just doesn't cause greater carbon emissions. But to mine just 1 ton of lithium, it requires ginormous quantity of water, somewhere around 500,000 gallons of water. And the global annual lithium demand is around 2 million metric tons. Jarring, isn't it? And I'm still shaken about just lithium, let alone cobalt and manganese. To extract in such quantities, more mines have to be set up, and minings of such minerals just doesn't lead you to the environmental impacts. It is far more appalling. The mining and extraction of these metals cause soil contamination, which further disorientates the hydrocycle of the region. The air around the mines become harmful for breathing due to release of toxic fumes in the air during the process. The entire biodiversity is hampered. The groundwater may get infectious as well. This leads to more droughts and loss of vegetation and wildlife. The mining industry majorly involves its miners to work overtime in hazardous conditions, and that too for even less than minimum wages. It also exploits the child laborers, and surveys have suggested that over 40,000 child laborers work as miners to extract lithium, manganese and the blood diamond for EV batteries, cobalt. Some heart-wrenching revelations have shed light on the working conditions where these children are not even allotted required tools for mining. Almost in all the cases, the child miners use their bare hands for the task. Over time, such activity ends up damaging their fist, fingertips, worn-off nails, disfigured fingers, some infectious wounds, which also claims their lives in some cases. The miners are kept deprived of even basic human safety like masks, and such carelessness leads to eventual lung damage and death of a lot of miners. Moreover, the entire process is extremely power intensive, and the power to run these mines are actually extracted through power plants that run on coal and other fossil fuels. This list of the evils involved behind the EV industries goes endlessly, but to our surprise, even after so many accusations, the total automobile industry is abounded with 9.2% EVs currently, while the same number was not even 5% in 2018. So, did any crazy invention take place in the EV segment? Has the charging infrastructure developed at par with fuel stations around the world? Have prices gone down significantly? The charging time and the range is not a barrier anymore? Well, nothing as such has happened yet. So what really changed the game for EVs? It was the government intervention. Then, the traditional motor companies launched their own EVs. The awareness of the product, the rightfully executed marketing campaigns, and proper placement of the environment crisis as the face and propagation behind the product worked out well. The government all around the globe subsidized the purchases of EVs. The taxes were minimized on purchase of an EV over a traditional vehicle. The decrement in the road legal lifespan of ICE vehicles implemented. An artificial scarcity of petrol diesel was created, resulting in a hike of fuel prices. The government pushed the traditional motor companies to enter the EV segment where once the only EV automotives had a monopoly. EV-only automotives like Tesla, Rivian, BYD, Triton were once the only EV makers that manufactured and sold only EVs. But in the last decade, almost all the traditional car companies around the globe have invested extensively in the R&D and launched their own EVs to capture the market and be relevant in the business. This diverted a segment of audience towards EVs who were once hesitant to put their money on a young and new brand. The traditional car makers brought their goodwill, the trust of their brand loyal people, and a lot of previously hesitant owners tried their hands on EVs. The advantages, the good, the pros of EVs were marketed hysterically. The EVs began marketing them as a solution to the ever-increasing issue of air pollution and global warming. EVs marketed themselves as a cheaper alternative to traditional cars. The EV sector also promised a cheaper maintenance cost, along with the propaganda of EVs running on renewable energy and are environment friendly. EVs help in neutralization of carbon emissions. But who actually benefited from EVs? The very first beneficiary to be directly benefited from an EV boom is the government of different countries, because as people adapt to EVs, the demand for fuel will be less, which will result in less demand in import of crude oil. The car makers, after taxations, make barely anything on traditional vehicles, whereas the profit margins in EVs are much higher. The electricity providers, who will earn more in revenue due to increased power consumption to charge their EVs. One or more of you may wonder that if the taxations are low, a subsidy is offered, and when the government earns a hefty part from the taxations and sale of fuel, why would they aim at losing that revenue and incur losses? Well, it is not really how it looks. The less demand of imports results in increment of foreign reserves of a country. It lessens the dependability of a country on another country to import fuel. And a dozen of other geopolitical reasons are involved, which we may talk about in some other video. But to answer the question, is government making losses? Absolutely no. EVs require batteries, and in order to meet the manufacturing demands, the minings of minerals for it will only grow in the coming years. In fact, as more mining is involved, more is the profit for the governments and EV makers. Hence, all of this sum up and bluntly proves us fools when we buy EVs. EVs are an equally bad choice at ownership levels over traditional cars because, firstly, the initial capital required to purchase an EV is much more than a traditional vehicle. The lifespan of an EV is much shorter than a traditional vehicle. The maintenance cost may be cheaper because of less moving parts in an EV, but the battery replacement cost in an EV is as good as replacing it with a new vehicle instead of just the battery. And mind you, the battery has to be replaced within 4 to 6 years and 8 years at max. The resale value of an EV is negligible. All these factors make it an overall worse choice to consider over an ICE vehicle. To be able to save money by driving an EV, you'll have to drive it for approximately 92 kilometers daily for for 5 years in order to get the money back you paid as initial premium. And the astonishing part is the numbers that reveal that an average car is driven around 15,000 kilometers only, which means the daily travel is around 41 kilometers only, not even half of what we should drive to recover our cost. Just a year ago, during Russia-Ukraine war, Russia eliminated the power and gas supply of the European countries, and a country where the EVs dominate the automobile industry, Netherlands, was also affected and had to shift back to petrol cars as there was not enough power available to charge the EVs. The other life-threatening risk that driving an EV poses is the risk of minor short circuits. The malfunctioning of the battery management system can lead to sudden fire breakouts, claiming lives of the passengers. And with the latest invention of hydrogen fuel cells and a lot of other inventions under progress, we cannot be certain of EVs to be a thing of the future with such tartuffery involved.